Well, hey there, guys. I'm Axel the Beast, and this is the Curiosity Shop, the ZeldaEngine.net video mailbag where I answer your Zelda questions. Our first question comes from Louis Corsino. He asks, do you want to see Vaati in an upcoming big Zelda title? Why or why not? Vaati was a cool character. He was a good villain. He was interesting, and, I'd like to see him again just because he was an interesting, cool character, but at the same time, I don't think they should force it. I think he's a character... I don't think just... Why not throw him in is a good excuse to put a character in any game. I think that if you're going to put the character in, there should be a reason. Does he fit the feel of the game well? Do you want to tell a new story with this character? Do you want to connect him to something else? Blah, 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 blah. Ganondorf has better reason to just be used because he's the main villain of the series. I'd like to see a lot of villains again, but I don't want to see them come back unless there's a reason or, it's done well. Though I'd like to hear what you guys think. I know Vaati has a lot of fans. Pippa21336 asks, do you think if Link's outfit changed drastically in one game that the character would be changed a lot? One of my favorite things about Link is his outfit, so if that happened, I think I might be put off from the next game. What about you? Well, I'll admit, with Link, one of the things that really does define him is his outfit. In a lot of the Zelda games, he has different personalities, so the one thing that keeps Link consistent as a character really is kind of his look and appearance, the hero in green. I don't think that it's, at the same time, I don't think it's really important about him. I think the fact is Link is he's the hero, he's the player, and he's the hero, and he saves Hyrule, and he does the Triforce of Courage, etc. I don't think that there's a problem with them changing things about Link's character. Of course, curious what you guys think, but I don't mind Link's character and appearance changing as long as they keep these elements intact, and I think it might be interesting. NMG asks, at the end of the Wind Waker, when Ganondorf dies, before he turns to stone, he says, "The wind, it is blowing." What does he mean by this? Well, I don't know. I guess he means the wind is blowing. In all seriousness, he's referencing the monologue he went on earlier, in that he talked about the wind, how in his desert lands that he lived in, it brought death, whereas in Hyrule it brought life. The wind, that is. It's just an emotional thing for Ganondorf and his relationship with wind in the game. And it's also it possibly could be intended as like a representation of how he believes when in his land wind is death and that he is dying. I don't know. That's one possibility, but it's a reference to his thing on wind. Funky Dozer asks, I wanted to know your opinion on the title being Legend of Zelda and not Legend of Link, or the hero, or some other name. One thing about titles of, well, anything really, is it doesn't necessarily, they're rarely named after the main character, and in fact, Link is, in a big way, he's not exactly a character, he's the player. Now, in some games this is different, but at least originally this was the case. So, Zelda is the consistent thing. The Legend of Zelda, because it's the Legend of Zelda, and she's getting saved across all the different games and all the different timelines, and she's the important element tying all the stories together, and she's the recurring theme. So, I think it works. It preserves the dynamic of the heroic epic, and it's like you're going around saving the princess, and it's the hero. The hero never has the title named after himself. There are exceptions, but I think it goes along with the ancient hero, medieval hero kind of feel. I think it works well. I don't think it's that odd. A lot of people do, though. Mooper11 asks, do you think that a Zelda game where you could play as Link, Zelda, and Ganondorf would be a good game? Well, one thing is, I think, as I was just talking about the dynamic of the ancient medieval epic where the hero saves the princess from the evil guy, I think in a big way that making Zelda and Ganon playable ruins that dynamic. It makes the story completely different from what the story was designed to be. And I think it's actually not necessarily a horrible idea. They're great characters, and at least for a spin-off it'd be great. But I think unless we're willing to see Zelda change from that traditional fantasy epic, I don't think it's necessarily something we should see happen. I think that's the consideration we need to make before we decide if we want to have Zelda and Ganon playable. I don't particularly think there's a ton of merits to them being playable in the main series, personally. I'm content with just Link. the exclusion of Zelda or Ganon, maybe, but I think as far as them being playable, I'm not so much. Ingo Needs a Hug asks, I was wondering what you think about the theory of Din the goddess being evil. I think it's a stupid theory, but I still want to know what you think. I kind of agree that it's a stupid theory. I mean, I don't want to use that word. I consider myself too nice of a guy to use that word a lot of the time. But, ultimately, I think that it's a baseless theory, and I think or at least what it is based off is meaningless, so it is baseless. What it's based off, from my understanding, is the idea that Ganon gets the Triforce of Power, hence Din's helping Ganon, so she must be evil. The Triforce of Power was given to him purely because the Triforce split and because power was the trait that defined him most. It was neutral. As for, I mean, you could go with it. I think it's more likely the theory that the goddesses in general are just not good or evil. They're neutral entities, because they're gods. But, well, goddesses. But, I think it's clearly defined, I think, especially in Twilight Princess, that they are good deities. So, or deities, whichever pronunciation. So, I think that's still not very valid of a theory. Nintendo Forever asks, if Ocarina of Time was meant to be a prequel to A Link to the Past, then why did Nintendo decide to make a sequel to Ocarina's adult timeline with the Wind Waker when A Link to the Past already had a place there? I understand that the split timeline was not intentional, but why do you think that they rewrote the story and contradicted themselves? Well, like a lot of people, I actually think that the older games could be placed after the Wind Waker or Twilight Princess on either timeline in a lot of different ways. At the same time, I do believe that when the Wind Waker was originally released, A Link to the Past was kind of supposed to go between it and Ocarina of Time. Now, they state that Ganondorf was the Emperor of the Dark Realm in the Wind Waker. What Dark Realm? There was nothing like that in Ocarina of Time. The only thing that sounds like it could reference is A Link to the Past. And that's a theory. There's no definite there. Another thing is that Wind Waker and Twilight Princess kind of messed with the timeline. There's things about them that just don't match up with their supposed placement. And I think that they were what really confused the issue with the timeline, most of all. Luke Bro asks, do you think that the Prince of Red Lions in Phantom Hourglass is related to the King of Red Lions from the Wind Waker in any way? No, definitely not. I think it's just a cameo, really. It's a fun little reference. It has no plot relevance. There's no reason to think it does. Hyrulean Legend asks, one of the gossip stones in Ocarina of Time says that Kaepora Gaebora is a reincarnation of an ancient sage. So does it tell us which sage he is? If not, what are your ideas? The fact that he's an ancient sage indicates that he's not a sage we know. He was a sage that existed long before the ones we're familiar with. Probably not even the last sages, just before the ones we're familiar with. So, we don't know. We don't know this person. It's just an ancient sage. Sage of Darkness asks, I don't understand the cutscene in Twilight Princess when you turn into a human in Lake Hylia. Link suddenly gets white eyes and the Dark Links come and stuff. Could you please tell me the meaning of this? It was really just a representation that Lanayru created in order to show Link the story he was telling with things he was familiar with. In short, it's basically Hyrule was all peaceful and happy, and then there was a war over the Triforce, and everyone started betraying each other. Everyone became evil, or, just violent. And then the Twilight came, or the Dark Interlopers, whatever you want to call them, and they used the few shadows to try to take over, and the goddesses intervened to stop them, etc. It's a representation of the story told. Just listen to what Lanayru was telling you. W. Patry04 asks, in an interview with Miyamoto, he said that most emphasis and priority has been placed on intuitive controls and fighting techniques, rather than a rich, exploratory world. I find this very disconcerting. Do I have the right to be pessimistic, or am I conceiving this wrong? Miyamoto says a lot of things, and I don't necessarily put a lot of stock into what he says, because he does contradict himself. I love the guy, but he does do this a lot. It's interesting, because Skyward Sword definitely has this emphasis on combat with the Wii Motion Plus controls. I think that when he says this, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's not putting focus on these other elements. It simply means that this is where his attention went first. This is what he built first, because, it's the new thing with the game and the Wii Motion Plus. It could also signify more of a emphasis on the gameplay rather than the world and story. I'm not sure what he means by this. He says a lot of things like this, and he confuses the issue sometimes. For the record, I don't remember that review specifically. Miyamoto says a lot of things, especially about Skyward Sword, but I wouldn't be too worried. I wouldn't even take it too seriously. I don't know what he means by it, and he doesn't necessarily... Even he knows what he means by it sometimes. I don't know. I just think Skyward Sword is a wait-and-see kind of thing. Kosh Schultz asks, what new things do you think Skyward Sword will bring to the table for the series, good or bad? I think it definitely has the new combat, which I think is going to be a good improvement. I think it's going to be deep combat and swordplay. And I think it's going to bring an element of difficulty to the series that we haven't seen in a long time. And I think it will be I think it's something that will be implemented in a way that does not turn off new people, yet also provides the hardcore experience. And, I mean, they've been doing that with a lot of their recent games, like Donkey Kong Country Returns or New Super Mario Bros. Wii. And I also think that it's going to kind of reach a medium style between the realistic and the cartoony that people will eventually appreciate the most. I think it'll set a new bar for the artistic style in the Zelda series. As far as other things, I don't know. We'll have to see, because we don't know what they're going to do with the game. Alright guys, that's it for this time. Be sure to send your questions to the contact page, link in the description, or my email address, though I prefer you use the contact page I link you to. And I'll see you guys later.